Welcome, Nelson, to this
Thank you.
conversation in this beautiful gallery with your work
Yes.
right behind us. I understand that this was just being tipped
Yes.
moments or maybe an hour ago. And so we'll come and talk about this work in a bit. But as a beginning, maybe we would just like to ask you about your profession as a ceramist, or as you say, someone who plays with clay. How did you come to this artistic practice, and what is your background that led to this point? Maybe we
Okay.
can begin there.
So first, thank you very much for the conversation. Okay. So 1999, after my NS, so I enrolled to Nanyang Academy of Fine Arts, Alpha. And then during that time, the most like so-called in major is the multimedia. So I signed up for multimedia. And during the first year, we have to attend all the minor, like, we got painting, we got sculpture, we got ceramics, and pre-making and so on. So during, if I'm not wrong, in term 2, I attended Mr. Peter Low class in ceramics. So like, I just fell in love with it, and I asked him, is it possible, beside during the timetable, like the period, I can come back and do more. So yeah, he encouraged me, and then he said, welcome. So every day, like without, if I don't have class, I'll just go.
Wow.
And then he teach me like throwing and other techniques. And he even bring me to his own studio, which is in Kota Tinggi, Malaysia. Like it's inside the forest next to the waterfall. It's like so fantastic, the place. So yeah, I learned a lot from him and become sort of like a apprenticeship. Yeah. And then during year 2, when we have to choose, like decide on our major, then I switched from multimedia to ceramics. So during that time, a lot of people like ask me, my family, my friends, hey, what you gonna do after you choose ceramics during that time? Like, how can you make a living? So I guess it's like just the passions. I never really think about it that much. So then I changed my major to ceramics and learned everything. And because I applied the student assistantship, so I don't have to pay the school fees, but I have to do all the firing for the ceramics department. And during that time, we don't have the electric kiln. It's all using gas. Yeah. So, like using the gas kiln, you have to stay back. So, in fact, like my year 2 and year 3, I stay in NAFA, the old campus, which is
Wow.
the
Okay.
current design center.
Okay.
Yeah,
So you know the space in and out.
sort of.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
So then after that, I graduate and I teach for a while. I built up my company, ceramics company, provide ceramics workshop to schools, and slowly, yeah, until now. After I sort of like teach ceramics workshop, right, to school and also in NAFA for about 10 years. Then in 2013, I went to Thailand, okay, to did my MFA, yeah, in applied art ceramics.
Why did you make that decision suddenly to, or maybe
Okay,
not suddenly, but like,
yeah. So after I graduate, right, I think it, it also happened to a lot of art, young graduates. Is like how you going to survive, right? So for me, it's mainly to teach. Okay, I conduct ceramic workshop in primary schools, secondary schools, and also teach NAFA night class, and then the NAFA junior art. So for that period of time, maybe 2001, 2000, like for over 12 years, I've been teaching. So I built out the connections, and also, but during this period of time, I never give up practicing. So I go to different studios to do my works. I attend ceramic biennale overseas to see exhibitions and take part in the group show. So until like the year 2013, I decided, oh, I want, because the company is more stabilized. And then I do some planning, and then even if, let's say, I'm away for 3 years or 4 years to do my master's, I still can, the company can still run smoothly. So that point I decided I want to continue and practice and learn more, because there's so much more to explore in ceramics. Yeah, and I get to know the National Tainan University of Art. So the program is run by Professor Zhang Qingyuan, which is my mentor, my professor in Tainan. So the program was really very nice. Like, I think it's one of the best in the region, because every week we have a small critique. Every 3 months they have like an assessment. You have to set up your work like an exhibition. Yeah, and in the studio, right, always there's invited artists, well-known international ceramic artists. So
In residency, kind of.
in the residency, we share the same studio space.
Okay.
All right, so we can exchange idea, and then we can learn from them, because those artists, international artists that invited to the residency, right, are very established ceramic artists. Yeah, and also during the program, Professor Chang always bring us to a lot of overseas trip, Korea, Japan, Europe, America, and we attend like NCCA. NCCA is like a gathering of all the ceramics faculties in US, the uni, not just in US, but also international universities. So they have exhibition, they have a lot of exchange, they have a lot of talks, a lot of lectures. So it's like a big ceramic trade show. Yeah, so that one really exposed me a lot. Yeah, so this is...
Yeah, wow, that's very exciting. And so then you finished your MFA, and
Yes.
then you return
Yeah,
back here.
return, and then yeah, I continue. Then I got a job offer at NAFA, so I teach them part time.
Okay.
Yeah, and so I also applied a lot of overseas residency from there, like in Japan, Shigaraki, in Finland, Arctic Clay Center, and then last year I went to China, Qingdezhen, for 3 months, and then I went to Shanghai, their art college of design, art and design, and then I went to Korea for residency. Yeah,
Oh,
so
that's a lot. That's quite amazing.
because there's so much more to learn,
Yeah.
and
yeah.
at every residency, right, I explore something new, because you interact or you learn from the different culture, the different materials that each country offer, the space, the environment. Yeah.
And that kind of shapes who you are, I guess, as you move along
Yeah,
in this sort of professional development
Yes.
as well. Yeah. It's interesting you talked about residencies and I guess this changes in culture and whatnot, right? So I'm quite keen to kind of maybe probe a little bit deeper into these notions of residencies, because a lot of times when you go, it's not just ceramicists, right? They are, I guess, of
Yeah.
multidisciplines.
Yes.
And then you get to work with different types of artists. Maybe you can talk a little bit about some of these possibilities and how it then reshapes the way you think about art.
Right. So at every residency, they, beside, usually the residency I went is like more ceramic space.
Okay.
But then over there, right, you will visit other artist studios like painters or printmakers. So from there, the exchange, then you probe deeper, and then you understand their practices. And yeah, but even within like people doing ceramics, there are so many different kind of way of practice and the ideas and the thoughts behind. And beside the materials, the ideas, the concept, and the interactions, I think the relationship with different artists, the technicians, the craftsmen, or even, yeah. So you learn a lot, yeah.
Along the way. That's wonderful. So let's talk more specifically, I guess, about your practice.
Okay.
And how has it evolved, I guess, over the years, and what are your sort of fundamental explorations and, yeah, as a practice?
So before I went to Thailand, right? So when I learned from my mentor, Peter Loh, so he's trained in UK and Japan. So he got like a very traditional or strong fundamentals, you know. We do a lot of basics like throwing and, you know, get all the basic knowledge of ceramics, right? So that built a strong foundation for me in my practice. Then when I went overseas and exposed to so many new contemporary ideas, it really opens up, like it breaks the original thoughts, or it sort of like tell me, okay, what my knowledge to ceramics is so limited because there are so many things to explore. Yeah. So yeah, then
Yeah, so then it becomes, I mean, your practice changes into a more sort of contemporary stance in some
correct,
ways.
right. And then after when I went to Taiwan, right, I've been exposed to different materials, and in the studio, Professor Zhang don't restrict students on the sort of method or the kind of directions that you are trying to, you know, practice. So it's like a total freedom. So like for this series of work, before that I didn't know that, okay, clay can make with other materials. So when I was there, I run every day around, you know, our school is surrounded by paddy fields. So I saw like those straws, dry straws, when they harvest, I mix them with the porcelain slip, the clay, and then this is really by accident because there's this metal wire, okay, the whole row of metal wire, and then I mix it with the porcelain slip. And I really, after firing, right, really love the kind of effect because the metal actually turn darker colors, and then it contrasts very well with the white porcelain. And then the cracks and the melting of the metals inside the kiln. For this series of work, right, constructions of memory, I actually do a lot of tests because the melting temperature of the metal and the clay is different. So how to balance the two different very contrasting materials, so it takes a lot of experiment, yeah, and tests. So so during my MFA, I really being exposed to a lot of different possibilities, yeah. And it really tells me that, okay, clay is not just the materials itself. It can be a lot of other things. It can be not fired, right? It can have different way of presenting, different forms, shapes, different firing, and yeah, there's so much more.
Yeah, so this kind of playing with clay and other materials and
Yes.
kind of looking at what's possible, right? And
Yes.
experimenting, as you see, in terms of firing and what kind of effect they all have. So this is called construction of memories,
Memories.
right?
Yes.
Yeah, could since we're here,
All right.
maybe can talk a little bit about why is it called construction of memories? I mean, I
Okay.
kind of have a glimpse of the work of the processes, and you talked
Okay.
about this kind of synchronizations or the coming together, right, of pieces and they construct a certain, maybe just talk us through some of these thoughts.
Okay, so the materials that I use, the chicken wire, is a very basic materials for constructions, the industry. So, and then when I was building this piece, right, using the chicken wire, okay, the metal wire. So it's first like constructions, and then our memories is being built up, just like a building or constructions, build up layers by layers. And I also fascinated by the every joint of the wire, right? Like, it's kind of like a crossroad in represent, the life. So sometimes if you turn left or you turn right, your life might be changed. Yeah, so when I was building this work, and the process is quite long because after I construct the structure using the chicken wire, I have to dip it into the porcelain slip. So every time I dip it, then let it dry. Total, I need about 3 to 4 layers to get the thickness. So the process is quite long. So during this, I always like recap some of the very memorable memories that I had. Yeah, like I think relationship with my parents, with my mom, the first incident, first memories of like you being caned or being something like that,
Okay.
Yeah, so
These
like
early.
your past life, I mean your things that happened in life, it's all the memories. And the way I construct it, right, it can at every different space. So I construct it differently. And I'm talking about this right here at this beautiful gallery space. I think like the light changes every day or even every hours is different. So the way that I construct it also like changes a lot. So I think sometimes like our life, it can have many different possibilities. Yeah, and for this shape, right, it's being built like that, but any of the parts is being taken off. For example, like your memories or things that happen to you, the whole maybe of your life might change, or it might collapse.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's why I titled the
It's
construction
construction
of
memories.
memories.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I mean, with this particular, this little rotation, we noticed some vulnerabilities have happened,
Yeah.
and in that sense, maybe that's also something you are prepared for, right? And
Yes.
that's you are expecting these things to happen. Maybe do you want to speak a little bit about those vulnerabilities and what does that mean for you?
I think like life is of course very vulnerable. You never know like what's going to happen next. In fact, when I turn this over, although I tried something like this where I overturn the whole sculpture before, but I cannot guarantee 100% it will stay. So yeah, but maybe 70% I know it works, but then you never know like the outcome or whether the stability for sure. When the moment when I turn it over, right, then I just sort of like, okay, let it be. Even the whole thing collapse is fine for me. Yeah.
So in some earlier iterations, has it collapsed before?
No.
So you are still kind of
I play
trusting your process, right?
Yeah, quite safe. I play it quite safe. So before we turn me and Steven, then we add a lot of cable ties, yeah, to it. No.
So in some ways, you do have some safeguards to kind of
Yes.
ensure that things, yeah. So it's also very interesting that in this space, because the exhibition lasts for a period of time, and then each week, I understand you reconstruct or reconfigure.
Yes.
Maybe you want to like talk through that process in this particular gallery. What does that provide you with? And is that similar in other spaces that you do, that you
Okay.
get to play with it like that?
Yeah, I think because of the title for this exhibition is called Transmutations, and the space allowed me to come in, even though the exhibition is really on. But whereas in a lot of other exhibitions, you have to put in the works just as it is, like the final.
Yeah.
So I think this is really a good opportunity, and I really like it. The idea of the artist can come in and change the artwork. I mean, not all the artworks, but for particular for mine, because it's more like an installation, and every piece is like individuals where I can take it down and then reconstruct something like a Lego. Yeah, and then I play with also the light and the space, and also very much on that day itself, because I never really planned beforehand. So every week I will come in depending on my feeling that day, and depend on how I want to construct. Yeah. So in a way, it's like, yeah, I really like the idea.
That's great. And it seems this is the final sort of rotation before
Yes,
the,
yes, yeah.
yeah.
So I think the last day is 18 April, and then yeah.
No, that's wonderful. So other than construction memories, I know you have other series of works,
Yes.
earlier. And so I want to probe a little bit into the earlier series and how that I kind of like builds up into this, or are they also about exploration of different materials in these other instances, and what are the sort of other philosophies that ties in with, like I think there's a still series, it's also like
Yes.
cast and mold, which is the earlier.
Right, right. So, during the MFA, right? So every 3 months we have to present our work, possibly in different ways or different concepts. So I think that is a very good practice. I think a good training, in fact, for artists, rather than some artists just stuck with one very similar form or idea. So during that time, I play with different concepts, and one particular that I quite like a lot, and I still hope that I can continue, is the Cast and Mold series. So I've been thinking a lot about the life process. Our life is like a repeated cycle. Okay, every day you wake up, you spend the day, at night you sleep again, and then, so sort of like the cast and mold. And there are many instances where the life is like cast or being molded. A lot of thoughts being go into this, maybe we are being unintentional or subconsciously being cast in the way that the society wants us to be, the information being fed, especially now using multimedia, or so that piece of work is, I use something that I use daily. For example, the mouthwash, the bottles. So I make that into molds, and then I slip cast them. And that series of work, I didn't really fire them. Okay, I didn't fire. And then I make a lot, multiple pieces. And each represent the life, everyday life. And then I add water to it. So, when the clay is not fired, and then you pour water in it, right? It will disintegrate. Okay, it will break down, and then the moment when it breaks, the water rushing out, right? Is that moment that I want to break away from these cycles, like being very cast or moved. And when the water dries up, everything settles, I will recycle the clay, make into slip, I will pour in the mold, and then cast the object again. So it's like the repeated life. I feel it's like our life, but how to break, I've been thinking a lot, because in my maybe Buddhist background, the religion, we always in this like reincarnations.
Yes.
And even in it, right, they are talking about like thousands of years, and we are just like currently present is just one life. And some people already think that it's too long. So yeah, that is the thought. No any answer, but it's just the process.
Fascinating, because I think with that, with each recast and remold in a way, right, there are subtle changes as well. And I think that's a sort of a reflection of, I guess, the way we run through life, but at the same time kind of being more observing, I guess, and even listening to kind of see what are these subtle moments of recurrence and how that could change or not change, and or even if you try to change, it might still return in some form or another.
Yes.
And so you're saying that you are interested to establish this series again and kind of work through it.
So that series, because there's a change, my lecturers said, oh, I think you have enough of the metal series, the clay and metal, so maybe you should move away. Yeah, that is like, I think, beginning of my year 3, the third year in my MFA. So that I come up with that series. Then work on it for a while until it's done for the assessment. Then I said, okay, maybe I should continue and move on. Yeah. So I think that is the work that I will probably want to continue. When I'm doing that series of work, I make a lot of more. So they are all in my storage in Thailand. So when there's an opportunity, then I will maybe represent the work again.
Oh, that's wonderful. So then let's talk about still, maybe. Yeah, the series.
Okay. Still is also same thing where I mix the clay or the porcelain slip with fabric. So I realized that if I dip the fabric into the porcelain slip and then I hang it, let it dry, it can create a kind of motions. But then where else, it's still, when you look at it, it's like still. It's almost like the time freezes.
Still, yeah.
Yeah. So, and that is probably a stage where I probably want to achieve. If it's like I want to be still. It's like we are always thinking and we are always moving on the move, but maybe I want to achieve a state of mind where I want just to be still. Like calm down. Yeah, that's the whole idea or the concept of the Still series.
Yeah, it's interesting because when I look at that series, yes, it's still, but it's also a movement, right? It's sort of a movement in stillness, or like it's frozen.
Right, frozen in time.
But it does sort of urge me to think it's going to do something else, or before that it was something else. So this sort of fluidity with that stillness, it's also quite a fascinating image.
Yeah. So during last year, the November, December, when I did my residency in NIE Ceramics Park, so in Korea, so I further developed the Still series. and I use, like I make it bigger, and then I see the impact. Like if if I make it bigger, and then there are more possibilities of different way of hanging and presenting. Yeah, it will be like interesting. So I'm now trying to apply a residency which can have like a bigger kiln, maybe 2 meters high. Then I'm going to reconstruct that series of work.
Wow.
Yeah, and it might be bigger than the metal series. So that is also a lot of challenges I can foresee. So it also allows me to push or to take up the challenge.
Yeah.
Yeah, to push the materials like further.
Yeah, and to see how far it can
Yeah,
go, right?
yeah.
So it's interesting. So I guess the ethos of your work is this whole playing with different materials and kind of testing and challenging and kind of looking at where it will go and how it will kind of land up. And so I presume from fabric to metal, the next series or whatever could be a play with other kinds of materials. I assume that would be something.
Yeah, always exploring.
Yeah.
Because metal, I think, is a materials that is quite very strong and hard.
Yeah.
But then play with fabric is something that is soft.
Yeah.
And it allows more form or shapes. Yeah. I also like influenced by the Lao Tzu philosophy of we should maybe move like water. Yeah, in life. So don't be so hard or so confined, with the end result. But there's so many ways or possibilities, yeah, to move forward.
So many ways to play, so many ways
Yes.
to flow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, that's great. So with that, actually, let's turn to education, right? Because
Okay.
you have taught for quite a number of years. And so I'm curious, with this ethos of yours, how does that translate in the way that you teach students? Because I know you teach, I guess, from the young to pre or even tertiary students, right?
Yes.
Is this ethos of exploration, experimentation, part of what you try to impart?
Yeah, I always tell the students the most important thing is you must have the interest. I think what makes me continue like today playing with clay or ceramics is the interest you must have. No matter I think like what media you choose. So during my teaching, but of course like to different age group, right? For the primary school kid, it's most important to let them play and let them enjoy. Don't restrict them so much. Cannot do this, cannot do that, things like that. Then for like the NAFA students, I always encourage them to explore, to have interest in the materials. I think when you have the interest, you can continue doing. Like you don't choose because of any other reason except that you just love. Yeah. This is I think my way, and then always encourage them. It's okay, this is just learning, even it doesn't like come out like what you expect, but it's a process. Yeah, and I always tell them that I don't mark their works based on the final album, but it's the process they are making, how the effort, the passion they put in. Yeah.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And so you allow them to play with different materials as well.
Yeah, a lot of people think that the word play is not serious, but I think play is a very important part of whatever you do. Yeah, if you can make the work and something that you enjoy, why not?
Yeah, no, that's great. It's good to hear. And I suppose then that's how your students will continue with their engagement and be passionate about
Yeah, especially
exploring
for
and
art students, I guess. Yes.
it's nice, very, very nice. I'm going to ask you a little bit now about, I guess, the Singapore scene
Right.
and the ceramic scene. What do you feel about the scene currently?
Okay.
And where do you think it's going to go to next?
Yeah, I think it's growing, especially for the past few years, right? I think there's a lot of ceramic studio, private ceramic studios opening up,
Okay.
and more people are interested in the media, the clay, and there are people who, like for example, the clay festivals. I heard, oh, so many people they attended, and then the response is quite well, and yeah, so more collectors, more collectors, which is I think is good. So I think like uh, yeah, when there's a lot of people interested in ceramics, let's say just 1% who are really serious, and then they want to go further. Yeah, it really bring up the whole, the ceramic scene in Singapore. Yeah, and I feel for those who are really serious, I mean, because there are so much events or things happening around the world in ceramics field. So those people who are really interested, they should go out and see, for example, like the Korea Ceramic Biennale, Taiwan Biennale, Japan Mino Ceramic Biennale, and if like in US there's NCCA, and then there's IAC, International Academy of Ceramics. So they hold every 2 years in different parts of the city, different country. Yeah, should explore more. And then I also hope that more art gallery can present like ceramic shows. Yeah, and yeah, I think slowly we will bring up the level of our the ceramics in Singapore. Yeah.
That's good to know. That means there is a lot to look forward to
Yes.
in the future. And do you know of many serious practitioners at this point that would want to really further their art in a professional way?
Besides those, I always encourage those who take up 3D in NAFA, like because when they major in 3D, ceramics and sculptures, so I try to encourage them. Sometimes I bring the graduate students overseas if I have events overseas, and then I recommend them some residency overseas as well. And I hope the local art gallery can also showcase more ceramics exhibitions. And yeah, like what Ling have curate like this show is, I think it's a very, very good platform. Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's great. Yeah, I am really appreciative of this show as well. Getting to really interact with the different ceramicists and also looking at the different processes. Yeah. Well, thank you. Thank you for your time to talk with me. I don't know if there's something else you would like to speak about, which I have not articulated.
I think
Yeah, because one of the things that was in my mind was about, I guess, bread and butter issues, right? Which
okay.
you've kind of sort of answered in the way that you deal with, and one of which is teaching, right? Like going to
Yeah,
teaching
teaching.
and
Yes.
establishing your kind of own network and allowing that to kind of build. Are there other ways with which, I guess, a full-time artist, in terms of sustenance, how that could be possible?
Okay. A few of my graduate students, I think they're doing quite well now, especially with social media. And then I always tell the students, you must be good at your craft or at your work. So there's a lot of effort that needs to go into that to make a good ceramic hour. So, and then with, I think, like now social media, a lot of platform, like unlike during my time when I just graduated, we always have to go through like galleries or third party. But now some of them, they are doing quite well, and they sell their work. So that's one way. And then of course, like teaching, so I engage some of the students to help me to teach in my workshop, and then they can learn from there. It's important. I would say that it's very important, like to survive, because I see many graduates, right? In the end, they are not doing what they major. They may be doing something else. So I'm sort of like blessed, because when I graduate, I was given the opportunity. So during that time, MOE was like encouraging a lot of schools to have this ceramics workshop. And I realized we are actually very lucky, because in Singapore, a lot of primary schools, I wouldn't say all, but a lot of primary schools, they have Choon. And then they do offer like ceramics workshop to their students, which I travel like so many different countries, right? I don't think any country offer ceramics workshop in their curriculums, because I think lack of the facilities.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Wow.
So we are actually quite blessed, I think. And it's also with that, right, the condition, it can allow a lot of students who major in ceramics opportunity to teach. But first you must learn and the basic. You must learn the basic well. Yeah, that is very important.
Yeah, I mean, essentially to be really good at your craft, right?
Yes.
Before you even try
Yeah.
to.
So a lot of hard work have to go into that.
Good, yeah. Lots of food for thoughts. And yeah, I mean, I'm surprised. I didn't even think about the facilities bit, right, in schools, and how we have all these
Yes,
possibilities
yes,
here.
yes.
Yeah,
When I talk to a lot of overseas artists, I say, hey, do you have ceramics program in their curriculum? Elementary, primary schools? Not really, not that I know of. Even in like country like Japan or in Korea.
Wow.
Maybe some private schools. Yeah, specialized they have.
well, kudos to us. And good that you are continuing this teaching, I mean, in these spaces as well.
Yeah, and I think doing ceramics is really, because one thing I realized, even now, sometimes I go to school to teach as well. Nowadays, students, right, primary school students, they are very bad at their motor skills, because I think we are too into 2D, like screen, especially like iPhone, or I mean smartphone, or pad, iPad. So when I ask students to use a piece of clay to even like pinch a heart shape or star shape, I realized like the P3, 4, or even P5 students, they can't do that. They are lacking our
dexterity,
basic
yeah.
hand motor skills, which is really, I feel like surprising. We slowly lost, that kind of touch.
Yeah. The physicality
Yeah.
of doing things.
Yes.
Wow, good point.
So I think it's important, like to have this, like the clay workshop in the school. Let the student do something that is 3D. It may not be clay, but
Yeah.
I think it's important
So that they don't just visualize, but have the ability to
to
actually
make.
manipulate and
Yes.
make. Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.